In 1982, Ridley Scott released his cinematic opus, Blade Runner. It was based on the 1968 novella by Philip K. Dick, and it presented us with a dark, dystopian view of the future. One where it was seemingly raining constantly, we were living in perpetual darkness, there were impossibly tall buildings, and flying cars zipping in and out of them all the time. And robots and androids walked the streets undetected amongst us. Blade Runner was set in 2019. And as challenging as the past 2 years have been, more so for some than others, I don't think anything was quite as desolate as what we were presented with then. But this fanciful, exaggerated miscalculation of the future is something that is depicted in popular culture quite a lot. Take Back to the Future 2. This is the one where Marty McFly navigates his DeLorean time machine into the future. Now, in 1989, when Robert Zemeckis presented us with this film, he was imagining a world 25 years hence where flying cars were still a thing. We had augmented reality movies, self-tying shoes. Ironically, we still weren't using contactless payments, and it still needed a quarter for your flying car. And hoverboards. And we've all lived through 2015, and I'm fairly certain none of us have had a go on a hoverboard yet. But it was going on forever. So this is 1927, when Fritz Lang produced Metropolis. Now, this is a super famous film, and it presented New York at the turn of the 21st century, in the year 2000. Clearly a New York that had been razed to the ground sometime in those 75 years and completely rebuilt again. And once again, flying cars and robots and artificial intelligence amongst us. Or leap to the present day, and in 2018, Steven Spielberg produced Ready Player One. Now, this is a world where a housing crisis and overpopulation is forcing us all to live in storage containers on top of one another, and we disappear into a virtual reality metaverse to escape. Okay, so there's something mildly believable about that, and that's the thing. You can almost imagine it to be real, and therein lies the problem. We're quite often told a lot of stuff, and we then believe a lot of stuff. So in 2016, voice technology was the latest big thing. They'd finally cracked it. It was working. And you would have found in every marketing conference, every TED stage like this, someone somewhere would have had a slide like this that said by 2020, half of all internet searches will have been done using voice. Hands up. Who's done a single voice search today? Or two? Or three? Well, no one by all accounts. This was Comcast. This was a multinational media conglomerate. Where on earth did this prediction come from, and why did we all believe it? Thomas Schelling is a Nobel Prize-winning economist and games theorist. And in the 1980s, and I'm afraid I'm paraphrasing here, he suggested that most of our lives consist of our responses to other people's responses, to other people's responses, to the responses of the people that were there in the first place. So effectively, predicting the future is like a giant version of the playground game Chinese Whispers, just making it up as we go along. I think it's slightly worse than that, a little more chilling, because actually I think most visions of the future are in fact male fantasies that were based on the childhood imaginations that were fed by the authors of their childhood imaginations. So we get the world of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells leads us to the worlds of James Cameron, Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg. It's probably why when we think of robots, we automatically imagine a humanoid-shaped creature, more often than not female. In reality, most robots are little more than a singular arm or a wheel connected to a motor that does a really repetitive task. Another Nobel Prize-winning economist, at the time Daniel Kahneman, He suggested that this is because people place more importance on issues with the ease with which they can retrieve them from memory. So the more we hear and see something, the more we are to believe it to be true. There was a time when 3D printing was going to revolutionize the world. We were told that every home was going to have a 3D printer, that modern manufacturing was going to become obsolete. Everything you were going to use was going to be 3D printed. Even your organs would be 3D printed. Now, I don't doubt that 3D printing is pretty clever technology, and I don't doubt that it's going to have an impact. But up until now, all we seem to have managed to do is print our names on pints of beers and print ever more intricate chocolate. I got nothing against beer or chocolate, clearly, but this is not going to revolutionize the world. But it's not just 3D printing, is it? It's virtual reality, it's augmented reality, it's artificial intelligence, it's chatbots, robots, voice integration, connected devices, and blockchain and stuff like that. And we hear about it all the time, and we're constantly promised that it's going to revolutionize the world. We've actually been hearing about it all for quite some time. In 1992, virtual reality entered into popular culture with Pierce Brosnan's Lawnmower Man. That's 30 years ago we've been talking about how virtual reality is going to revolutionize the world. Step forward 10 years and you've got Minority Report and the augmented reality. You've got artificial intelligence in 1968 and 2001, The Space Odyssey, when HAL, the sentient being that kills everyone on the spaceship. You've got the first chatbot was invented in 1966. It was called ELIZA, and it was used to treat anxiety and depression. We've had these things for ages. Robots were around on our TV screens. Clearly, I don't remember it, but from 1965, when Lost in Space came on TV. 1986, and Star Trek's Voyage Home, voice integration, voice search. Scotty picks up a mouse, which didn't exist, does a voice search on the internet that doesn't exist, for Google that doesn't exist. But we've had voice technology since then. Connected devices in the Jetsons from 1962, when Hanna-Barbera launched that. Blockchain. The Magna Carta was produced in 1215. They wrote 4 different copies of it, and they sent them all to 4 different cathedrals in Great Britain so that it couldn't be played with or adjusted or changed in any way. So arguably the first demonstration of a distributed ledger. This stuff has been around for such a long time, it just doesn't seem to have revolutionized the world. My third and final Nobel Prize winner, this time he was a physicist, this is Richard Feynman. And he's warned us we need to be careful not to believe things simply because we want them to be true. No one is so easy to fool as ourselves. And that's where we get to this world of the future that we're sold through popular culture. So when I try and think about it, and I was thinking about this talk, I spoke to my kids. That's them there. Noah's the sinister, serious looking one. Carter's the mischievous one. They're going to become Dorset's answers to the craze. And when I was speaking to them, actually this photo was taken just after I spoke to them, and Carter thought I was a fool and Noah was terrified. I was asking them about the future. I was like, what is it? I said, well, maybe, Dad, we shouldn't be thinking about what's going to change. Because that's what you're talking about all the time. All these things that are going to change. Maybe we should reframe. I'm putting words into their mouths. Clearly they didn't say we should reframe this. Maybe we should reframe how we think about this, Dad, said the 6-year-old. Maybe we should spend more time thinking about what's going to stay the same. And what a novel concept that was. Now, we've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and there's loads of stuff at that, and it's all really important, and it's all the things that we need as people, but I've picked 5, and they don't even appear on it. So these are the 5 things that actually, for millennia, these things have gone unchanged. These are the things that we need. And if we can get technology in some way or shape or form to aid us to achieve these 5 things, then that's the future that we want. Take social connectivity. For millennia, we have gathered round fires and we've craved company of others. We've gathered together and congregated around our love of fashion, and clearly I was in a group on my own. We've gathered around music and we've created society built around that. We love social connectivity, and it was writ large in the great lockdown of 2020 when suddenly that chance for social connectivity was taken away from us. Now, there are technology platforms that can enable this. Sadly, some of the larger ones are more inclined to generate profits for advertisers and for their owners. But that technology exists. And if we can find a way, if you can use your business or your personality to connect people, then that's the future that we should be looking for. Health and well-being. Before the agricultural revolution, we were hunters and gatherers, and we exercised all day, every day. In fact, our exercise was chasing the food that was going to be what we needed to continue to chase the food the next day. That craving of we were healthy. Over the centuries, that sort of thing has left us behind, but we still crave health and well-being. We still want to feel good about ourselves. So whether it was the martial arts craze of the 1970s that swept across the world, or whether it was aerobics in the 80s and Jane Fonda's workout, or, again, back to the great lockdown, and something like Peloton comes along that gets social connectivity and our craving for health and well-being. And there's a reason why Peloton and that kind of technology has taken the world by storm, because we seek social connectivity and we desperately want to live longer, be healthier and happier. Value systems, right and wrong, good and bad. These are the things that have been around, again, since the dawn of time. Whether you're looking at the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, or any other scripture, it's given us a moral compass. It's telling us what's right and wrong. It's directing us in one way or another. And so then we look at things like the rise of purposeful brands now. You know, that's intrinsic to our own value systems. That now that the level of trust in our political systems dropping, the level of trust that we have in certain businesses. So when we want to stand up and stand for something and create social connectivity and mean something to people, it's about plugging into that value system. And if you can use technology to do that, then even better. Oh, this desire for self-improvement, right, you know, since the Gutenberg press and the invention of publications, we've all been vociferous readers or listeners now, or watchers on YouTube. The point is, we constantly want to learn, we constantly want to become better, we constantly want to improve. Again, back to the great lockdown of 2020, we're all sat at home learning how to bake bread. Soda bread's my thing, or cakes, or whatever. It's about how do we use technology to improve the world around us rather than just change it. And security. So we all crave health security, whether it's our home security, whether it's personal security, or it's there, it's intrinsic as a thing that we're striving for, that we need as a society. And if we can use technology, whether that's protecting our data and trusting the people that we've given our data to protect our data, because they share the same values as us, and we want to use that data to improve, then this is a really important thing. And that's the kind of thing that's going to generate the future that we're looking for. This technology is not going anywhere, and as I said, with my children, it's ubiquitous to their lives. They don't even notice it. They take it all for granted. But where we see the future coming to life is when we see that technology used to meet those 5 needs. So whether it's insurance companies that are now using virtual reality to train their call center operatives so that they've got empathy for the people on the end of the call. You know, if your house is burnt down or flooded, you know, you're in a dire state. And if you want to call the insurance person, you want them to be able to empathize with you and not just say computer says no. Or it might be augmented reality and surgeons and clinicians using augmented reality and virtual reality to prolong our lives and solve those kinds of diseases and perform surgeries that wouldn't necessarily be possible if we didn't use the technology. There's a great example of the Internet of Things being used in Amsterdam, where with the rising sea levels, the canals are rising. And where everyone's got a boat or something stored in the canals, they use an Internet of Things to connect them so that people can trust that their property is being looked after, that they've got the security, that if it should start flooding, they won't lose it. This chap down in the bottom corner, Hugh Hare, he's an MIT professor and an avid rock climber who, when he was 17, lost both of his legs in a terrible, terrible accident. So he's devoted his life to using robotics to not just solve that problem, but to improve the life and improve his future and the future for those around him. That it's not just about getting up and walking, but actually he's got an opportunity to do it better now. And there's videos of this guy climbing mountains with these telescopic Inspector Gadget-like legs. It's quite a phenomenal thing. And of course, we all got to know our neighbours and our house and the people down our roads through the social connectivity of the apps that we've got at our disposal. And we use some of the platforms to connect, and we're all constantly counting our steps and checking our heart rate, or at least I am. If we don't think about those 5 things, and if we constantly keep striving for a future that is focused on the things that are going to change rather than the things that are going to stay different, or the things that won't change, then unfortunately this might be the future that we all end up with. And if we concentrate on those 5 things, we might end up with a better future. Because funnily enough, tomorrow is the future, and the future's not actually that different. Thank you.